Every year in the week leading up to Pesach, I get a number of questions about how and whether a person can do an early Seder, start it earlier than the norm. I just got this question from one of our rabbis in Chicago. And it's clear why people are asking this, because the general rule is you can't start the Seder until tzeit. You can't even make Kiddush until tzeit. Tzeit, for us in New York, is normally about 42 to 45 minutes after sunset, which would be 8:15 for Pesach. Now, to start a Seder at 8:15 is hard on everyone. It means that you don't get to the meal till 11. People are hungry. It's very hard for them to do the type of a magid that they're supposed to do, expound upon the Exodus and reflect upon its messages at length. And it's particularly difficult for children and small children who you want to participate in as much as the Seder as possible. So what is possible? The first thing is to understand why we normally wait until tzeit. And the reason is because the Gemara says that you don't eat the matzah until it's definitely night, which is understood to be until it's tzeit. And then comes along a later Rishon, Trumas Hadeshin, and says, you shouldn't start any part of the Seder, the Arba Kosot, until that time as well. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. Now, that is a questionable extension, but even if we go by it, given that it was a later extension and the Arba Kosot is rabbinic, I believe we can certainly rely on the position of the Gra, who says that tzeit is 14 to 16, depending on where you are, minutes after sunset. So, obviously, never rely on this for things like Shabbos and Yontiv and anything of that nature. I spoke about that in another one of these videos. But for something like the Arba Kosot, given the context and the circumstances of the mitzvah element of starting earlier, I would go by the Gra. So I would make Kiddush 14 minutes after sunset. That buys you a half hour. And then you start the whole magid. And then you would wait at Avadim Hayinu until it's tzeit, because that is the real magid, Avadim Hayinu, and then when it's tzeit, I would repeat the 4 questions. You don't have to do a whole ritual, just repeat them, and then start Avadim Hayinu, because the mitzvah is, the telling of the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is through a question and answer. Now, that's on the first night. On the second night, Shabbos leading into Yontiv, you have even an opportunity, because that normally takes a while before you put up the food and set the table, and you have to wait till tzeit. And here I would say you can even start some of that at Shkia, because the halakha is that Bein HaShmashot, the period after Shkia, you're allowed to do rabbinic restrictions for the sake of a mitzvah. And clearly starting the Seder earlier rather than later is the sake of a mitzvah. So already from Shkia, I would start setting the table. I could go ahead and put the food that is fully cooked and not a liquid, a solid, on the blech straight from the refrigerator. But be very careful not to do anything that are biblically prohibited during this time. Lighting a fire, cooking food that is not cooked. But that is what you would do, and then you would have the whole table set and the food starting to warm up. And then you could start the Seder, as I said, 14 minutes after Shkia. Kiddush would not have Borei Merei Ha'esh because you cannot light a new fire, and you would have to wait to do that. And a greater detail about how to go about all this step by step can be found in the links accompanying this video. So I hope everybody has a wonderful Pesach and that you are able to have the Seder in a way that allows full participation and people to really be fully present. Chag Kasher v'Sameach.